Rain hammered the diner windows so hard the neon sign outside smeared red across the glass like wet paint. Fry oil hissed behind the counter. Cheap coffee steamed in thick mugs that had survived more years than anyone wanted to count. The air smelled like vanilla syrup trying and failing to hide grease. The night I almost watched a roof drop on someone started as the worst date I'd had in a decade. Across the booth from me, the woman who had agreed to dinner kept lifting her phone. Each time the screen lit up her face, brighter than the overhead lights. The glow lasted longer than her eye contact. "So you're a contractor?" she asked, without looking up. "Structural," I said. She finally glanced at me. "That sounds unstable." I took a slow drink of coffee that tasted like the pot had been burning since breakfast. Explaining the job wouldn't fix anything about this evening. Some conversations are already finished before the first plate arrives. I read buildings for a living. Steel lines, concrete tension, the quiet signals that say something is about to give up pretending it's strong. None of that helped here. The vinyl booth stuck to my forearms as I leaned back. Rain rattled harder against the windows. The front door opened and a gust of cold air slid down the back of my neck. Then the waitress arrived. She carried a black serving tray balanced on one hand like it weighed nothing, dark hair loose over one shoulder. White tank top under a black apron tied tight at the waist. Not dressed for attention, still impossible to miss. She placed a sweating glass of ice water in front of me. But she didn't look at my date. She looked straight at me. "If you wanted," she said quietly, "I'd sit in this booth with you all night." Not flirtatious, not apologetic, just a simple offer. Like she had opened a door and stepped aside. My date scoffed and returned to her phone without acknowledging the comment. I started to answer. Then the ceiling snapped. The sound was sharp and wrong. Wood cracking under a load it couldn't carry anymore. Dust drifted down between the lights. The waitress looked up at the exact same moment I did. A low groan rolled through the drop ceiling. "If you're new here, subscribe now, because this story gets worse before it gets better." "Move," I said. I shoved the table sideways and grabbed my date's arm, dragging her out of the booth. Behind us, the ceiling grid buckled. Tiles shattered. Wet insulation collapsed onto the seat we'd been sitting in seconds earlier. A fluorescent light swung loose and sparked before going dark. People screamed, plates crashed, chairs scraped against tile. The waitress moved faster than anyone. "Front and back doors," she shouted. "Both sides. No phones, just move." She grabbed an older woman by the shoulders and guided her toward the exit. The tray stayed balanced in her other hand the entire time. Outside, the rain felt colder than it had through the glass. Everyone gathered under the awning. Wet asphalt reflected the diner's flickering sign. A dark SUV sat across the street with its headlights on. The waitress saw it. Her jaw tightened. "That him?" I asked. "Yeah." An older man in a flannel jacket stepped beside us. He had been sitting in the corner booth earlier reading a newspaper. "Greg Vane," he muttered. "Developer. Likes buying things after they break." The waitress shot him a warning glance. Not angry, just enough to stop the comment from turning into a parking lot speech. I stepped back inside. The diner smelled different now. Wet drywall and rain cutting through the grease. The collapsed section hung low over the booth row. The beam above it sagged under water weight. Dark stains spread along the wood like bruises. This hadn't started tonight. I walked back to the doorway. "No one goes under that span," I said. "Not until it's braced." The waitress nodded once. "What do you need?" "Anything straight. Mop handles, brooms, milk crates." She didn't hesitate. 5 minutes later, we were jamming broom handles beneath the sagging ceiling grid and stacking crates to spread the load. Temporary supports. Ugly, but functional. Water dripped from the insulation and ran down my sleeve. Then the front door opened again. A man stepped inside like the puddles belonged to him. Clean jacket, clean boots, no rain on his shoulders. "Elena," he said smoothly. So that was her name. She stood behind the counter with both hands planted on the surface. "Leave, Greg. I heard there was an incident." He looked around the room like a banker assessing collateral. "You need help. I need you gone." His eyes slid toward me. "And you are?" "Silas," I said. "Structural contractor." He smiled like that confirmed something. "Then you understand liability." He leaned on the counter. "The bank will be very interested in this." Elena reached under the register and pulled out a metal cash box and a thick folder. The papers inside were soft at the corners from being opened too many times. "You already called them," she said. "I alerted them. You told them the building was failing. I told them the truth." He tapped the folder lightly. They protect their investments. And you buy them cheap afterward, she said. I solve problems. By owning me? By employing you. The word hung there. Elena didn't raise her voice. I don't work for you. He turned to me again. You planning to donate labor, hero? I squeezed a soaked chunk of insulation over the counter. Water streamed out onto the wood. This roof's been leaking for weeks, I said. Maybe months. His jaw tightened. You can buy her debt, I continued, but the repairs come with it. Elena watched the exchange without asking for anything. Not help, not protection, just measuring. Greg Vane misunderstood that look. Men like him often do. You have 30 days before the bank takes this place, he said. Then he walked back into the rain. The ceiling creaked above us. Elena leaned over the counter and studied the numbers in her folder like they were a ladder she hadn't decided how to climb yet. I stood there dripping rainwater onto the floor and realized I wasn't finished with this diner. Morning arrived grey and quiet. Rain softened to a steady drizzle that blurred the town into muted colors. The diner's neon sign flickered weakly in the window. One side of the tubing had burned out overnight. I arrived before the city inspector. Inside, buckets sat beneath the worst leaks. The taped-off booth section still smelled like damp plaster. Elena stood behind the counter with a pen between her fingers and her hair tied back tight. She had the same folder open in front of her. You came back, she said. You make good cocoa. The corner of her mouth moved like she almost smiled. The door opened again. The inspector walked in carrying a clipboard and a hard hat that still had the store sticker on it. He didn't greet anyone. He walked straight to the taped-off section and tilted his head up. That beam needs permanent support, he said. He tapped it with the end of his pen. Keep this section closed until an engineer stamps a repair plan. Posts under the span. Permit filed. Inspection after. Elena wrote every word down. No arguing, no bargaining, just facts on paper. Then the inspector pointed toward the back. Grease trap. Her jaw tightened slightly. It's serviced. Show me. We stepped outside into the narrow alley behind the diner. The air smelled like rain on concrete and old fry oil. The grease trap lid sat crooked in the pavement. The rubber gasket around it had cracked along one edge. The inspector frowned. Seal this properly, he said. Keep the receipts. If someone wants leverage, this is where they'll look. Elena pulled a plastic sleeve from her folder. Inside were grease-stained service receipts. He scanned them quickly and nodded. Good. Then he left. His truck disappeared down the wet street. Elena stood there for a moment, holding the folder against her chest. Her hands shook once. Then she steadied them. You okay? I asked. No. She said it plainly. I crouched beside the grease trap and lifted the lid slightly. The smell rose sharp and sour. If Vane wants a weapon, I said, this is it. She looked down at me. Why do you care? I pointed up toward the roofline. Structures don't care who's right. They just fail. She shifted the umbrella she'd been holding until it covered both of us, even though I was already soaked. Can this place survive? She asked quietly. I studied the building, the roof, the beams, the grease trap. Then I looked at her. Yes, I said, if we move fast. That night my crew arrived with a flatbed truck and portable lights, steel posts, screw jacks, sheets of plywood. The parking lot turned into a construction site. We set temporary supports beneath the beam and lifted it slowly. Structures don't like sudden corrections. You listen while you work. Every creak means something. Elena stayed the entire time. She brewed coffee for the crew, held flashlights when we needed an extra hand, wrote every cost in a yellow notebook. Around midnight, the beam stopped shifting. The load settled onto the temporary posts. The ceiling grid held steady. Elena handed me a mug. Cocoa, she said. Real vanilla. Steam curled into the cold night air. Roof's safer than the dining room now, she added. Come on. We climbed a ladder to the flat roof. The town stretched out beneath the misty street lights. Cars moved slowly along the wet road. How long have you been holding this place together? I asked. She kept her eyes on the parking lot. Long enough. 2 words. No explanation. I leaned against the parapet wall. I slept in my truck for 5 years, I said. She glanced at me. Why? So I'd have options. The word hung between us. Options like leaving bad deals, I said. Buying my own tools, not owing anyone. She stared into her mug. I need $15,000, she said. I know. I had seen the bank letter. The red stamps. She didn't ask for help. She simply stated the number. The next morning, a courier delivered a thick envelope. Elena opened it slowly. Notice of default. Foreclosure steps. 30 days. 5 minutes later, Greg Vane walked in. "I can stop this," he said. "You started it?" Elena replied. He smiled. "Business. I flipped through the loan papers until I found the clause I hoped existed. Most people never read the back pages. Cure period," I said. 30 days after notice. Bring the loan current. Fix violations. Keep the property." Elena traced the line with her finger. "So I have 30 days. Greg laughed. "You won't find that kind of money." He was right about one thing. She didn't have it, but I did. Not comfortably. Not without draining everything I had saved. Elena watched me. Not asking, not hoping, just waiting to see what I would do. I took a breath. "Tomorrow," I said, "we go to the bank." The bank smelled like cold air and paper. Elena stood beside me holding her folder. Inside my jacket sat a cashier's check that felt heavier than steel. The teller looked up from behind the counter. "Morning, Silas." Her eyes moved to Elena. "You must be the diner owner." Elena nodded. I placed the check on the counter. "We need to bring a loan current." The teller typed quietly. The bank doors slammed open. Greg Vane strode inside. "Stop that transaction." Heads turned across the waiting area. The teller didn't look up. "You'll need to wait your turn." "I hold the debt," he snapped. She finally met his eyes. "This customer is still within her cure period." She turned the document toward him. 30 days. Day 2. I slid the receipts and repair plan across the counter. Roof shoring installed. Engineer scheduled. Grease trap compliant. The teller checked the numbers again. Then she looked at Elena. "Do you authorize this payoff?" Elena didn't look at me. She didn't look at Greg. "Yes," she said. Her signature sealed the line. The teller stamped the paperwork. "Loan current," she said. Foreclosure paused. Outside the bank, the rain had slowed to mist. "You just spent your savings," Elena said. "Most of it. On my building. On our building." She studied me for a long moment. "You don't know me. I know you stayed all night while we worked." I shrugged. "That's enough." We signed the partnership papers that afternoon. 2 names on one line. The next 2 weeks were construction. Rotten beams removed, new supports installed, fresh ceiling tiles fitted into place. Elena ran the job like a foreman. Schedules, budgets, inspectors, every receipt filed in a binder. One night after the crew left, she stood beneath the finished beam and stared up, breathing slowly, like the building had finally exhaled. "Why did you really do it?" she asked later. I wiped dust from the counter. "Because I build things to hold," I said. She grabbed the front of my hoodie and pulled me down. The kiss was quick, firm, like tightening a bolt. "Don't make it weird," she said. "I won't." 3 days later, we reopened. The first customer was a mother with 2 kids. "We missed your pancakes," the little girl said. More people followed. Road workers, a nurse, old man Miller with his newspaper. By noon, the diner hummed again. Then the door opened. Greg Vane stepped inside. He looked up at the new ceiling, at the inspection tag, at the framed cure letter on the wall. Elena stepped in front of him. "You're not here to eat. I'm a customer." The room grew quiet. I walked up beside her. "You lost," I said. Greg glanced around the room. Everyone watched him. No one spoke. He took a step back, then another. The doorbell rang as he left. The diner returned to life. Forks scraped plates. Coffee poured. That night after closing, Elena handed me a ring of keys. "For mornings," she said, "and nights." I closed my hand around them. "Silas," she said softly, "if you wanted." I remembered the first night. The broken ceiling. The dust. "I'd sit in your booth all night." This time I pulled her close before answering. Outside, the rain had stopped. Inside, the roof held steady. And for the first time since that ceiling cracked, so did everything else.